Morning, partners. Rob from Rob's Game Group here, and I guess, as a lot of you know, I live in the United States, and it is January 2021, and we have been going through a bit of a fiasco with our election since November. It's been a rough ride. It's been a rough ride for everybody. We're all very tired, and nobody trusts anybody anymore. And we are days away from the inauguration of a new president. And we a lot of people have a bleak outlook on what's coming, what the future holds for the United States. Are we going to usher in a new president along with democratic socialism? Are we going to end up in a civil war? Are we going to end up with martial law because another president decides to stay in office? I don't know, friends. I don't know. But what I do know is this. I'm still going to be here every week putting up videos for as long as I can on gaming stuff that has nothing to do with politics. So, let's get into that, because, you know, quite frankly, I'm tired of my feed on YouTube and Facebook and everything else and all the political stuff on there. So let's talk about some fun stuff. You guys have heard me talk multiple times about the Palladium world books and stuff that I have over here, and how they are great for RIFTS and Palladium Fantasy and TMNT and so on and so forth. But they're also great for using with, like, you know, Savage Rifts, Savage Worlds Rifts, as a resource material. I've said this a bunch of times, and I kind of felt like I wanted to do a series of videos where I take a look at some of these Rifts books and actually show you what they have to offer. And one in particular that I'm going to start with, because I feel it's the most important, is, get the glare off of it, the RIFTS Adventure Guide. Probably one of, if not the best resource books that there is for RIFTS. But we'll get to that in just a minute. Before we do, if you like the channel, please subscribe. Hit that like button. It does help to circulate the video and get the word out to more people. Share the channel. Also, if you would like to interact with me or my players directly, you can find us on Facebook at Rob's Game Group, all one word. You can go to our Facebook page. You can join up there. I post a lot of stuff in there about games I'm playing during the week or things I'm working on. But you can feel free to message me there, ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer everything on here. In fact, I've gotten several questions. I might end up doing a Q&A session where I take the questions and answer them. And so anyway, now that we've gotten past all of that, so RIFTS books. Yes, the world books are fantastic, and Sean, the line director for Savage Rifts, has said, you know, use them for more information than what's in the Savage Worlds version of the books. They tell you in the Savage Worlds version of the books what world books and other books they pulled stuff from. And that's great, and it's all accurate. And yes, you can most definitely do that. You can go to those books and use them as a resource to get even more information, or you can just use them to play regular Rifts Palladium style. Either way works, in my opinion. But the book that I'm going to start this series out talking about is the RIFTS Adventure Guide. This is a fantastic resource book. When it came out, it was $21.95. I think now it's up to like $24.95, so ooh, a whole 25 bucks. Perfect bound. Still holds up after many years. So first let's look at the cover. That cover art is fantastic. like most Rifts books. But that art just sets the scene for, there's ideas for adventure right there. But what comes in it? Over 150 adventure ideas, how to create, design, plot, and run role-playing games. Adventures by Palladium's top game designers and writers. Kevin, Eric, Bill, Kevin Zambita, Bill Woolcheck, and Bill Kaufman. From finding ideas and getting started with adventure structure, character archetypes, and examples galore. There is finding and building on ideas, approaches to adventure design and running the game, player tips and suggestions, tables for generating towns and cities, tables for generating syndicates and secret organizations, tables for creating mercenary companies and traveling shows, creating names and finding the big ideas, the Chi-Town burbs and more on Rifts themselves, post-apocalypse Rifts Earth, and 101 adventure ideas and more. I find this to be even more so a indispensable resource, whether I am running Palladium Books Rifts or Savage Rifts. It's a fantastic resource. In fact, it's a good. There's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't pertain to Rifts at all. It just pertains to game mastering and building adventures. That is really good info. This is better than the Game Master's Guide, in my opinion, which I will be taking a look at some point and giving you my thoughts on it. But this book in particular is really, really good. So what's actually in it? Well, let's take a look at the book. Like all Palladium books, it comes with, loaded with a lot of text. It has a thing in here, starts out with the value of this guide, role-playing, a common understanding, what the players' jobs are, things players should consider, and players working with the GM, players should ask questions. And then we start with, and this first one's by Kevin Zambita, creating adventures. The reason that I like this better than a regular Game Master's Guide is because it's basically the whole first half of this book is a collection of essays by these different writers on game mastering and creating adventures. He's got, this nice essay. It starts out with talking about how you get started with it, where you draw inspiration from, building on the idea, keeping in mind that there are different strokes for different folks in how people like to play, outlining the story. It has a whole thing on story structure, the classic 5 acts of drama, and then Game Master, you are the power, and a whole section on that. And it's a really nice essay here or editorial, I guess, that covers a lot of game mastering points, elements of the game, fair play, secret information, options and chances. Like I said, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'm just kind of flipping through. Then there's even a section for like first-time adventuring, first-time GMs and low-level adventures, and how they suggest you do that. Player checklist, pre-game warm-up, adventure considerations, game master checklist. Then there is a section on how Kevin does it, with some great line art. Like most Rifts books, has fantastic art in it. The RPG campaign is a continuing epic. When to use skill counts skills towards experience. Experience points being their own rewards. Then we go into Dungeon Master tools with more great line art, and an essay on the dungeon crawl. And I'm going to read this little excerpt here because I like it a lot. Once upon a time, this is by Kevin Zambita. Once upon a time, some genius came up with the idea for a role-playing game adventures based on a dungeon crawl. It is simple, to the point, easy to make, easy to play, and lots of fun. Now, because the concept originated with Dungeons and Dragons, or D&D, and is over 25, well, more than that now, but over 25 years old, a lot of folks poo-poo at the idea of dungeon adventures. And that's because they have either outgrown it or have moved on to more sophisticated adventures, or they are goofs who don't know what they're talking about. How can I say that? Because the dungeon crawl is beautiful in its simplicity. It's ideal for game masters, especially if running beginning players, and even a poorly designed dungeon can be a hoot to play. I've been planning and running role-playing games now for over 20 years, and I still use the basic concept and format of the dungeon from time to time. I find it ironic that many of the dungeon naysayers love computer video games that are in effect high-tech electronic dungeons, complete with monsters, antagonists, or treasure behind every door. And then it goes on to talk about the concepts of a dungeon crawl. I keep in mind, even in RIFTS, it doesn't have to be your traditional dungeon as far as like D&D where it's, you know, some old catacombs, ancient catacombs. It could be that, but it doesn't have to be because RIFTS is post-apocalyptic future. It could very much be, you know, you could have a giant down-crashed spaceship and exploring it be your dungeon, per se, or some ancient ruins from a U.S. city, military base, so on and so forth. Any of that can be a dungeon crawl. But that section goes on. Then there's a section on archetypes, the different types of archetypes that you can use. Again, more great line art in here. I don't know what it is about the line art. The line art just makes me, I don't know, it makes the game feel more old school to me. That's just probably a personal preference. But I do love it. Then on page 82, we get to the Coalition State Burbs. Now, this is an interesting section in the book, especially, well, obviously for RIFTS, but because there's been a lot said about the Burbs. There's an entire anthology set or novel of short stories or collection of short stories, Tales from the Chi-Town Burbs. I have it. It's fantastic. I highly recommend picking it up. I think it's like $12 or something off of Palladium's website. But there are some really good stories in there. Not every one of them. There's a couple of them in there that are like, whatever. But there are some in there that are just fantastic. Specifically, there's a tale early on called A While Longer. If you get a chance, read that. That's really good. But getting back to the CS Burbs section here, there's a whole section, a whole chapter that's talking about the Burbs themselves, the structures of the Burbs, and then it breaks the Burbs down by district. You have Old Town Burbs, and each one that I'm about to name, it goes through and it breaks down through here. It breaks down the population, human Psy Stalkers, DBs, the people, you know, they have nothing to do with DBs whatsoever, except magic. They're afraid of magic. They're literate and American. Possess psychic abilities, and it gives you a percentage of how many people in that area would have that. But that's the Old Town district of Burbs. We have Newtown Burbs, does the same thing. Shantytown Burbs. And then you have a section on lexicon of slang in the Burbs, which is kind of nice if you want some slang terms to throw around in your game to make you feel more in the role play. Work in the Burbs. What kind of jobs are there for you to do in the Burbs? Then you have a section on notable businesses in the Burbs. Armorers, body chop shops, body fixers, bootleggers, city rats, drug dealers, drug dens, fight clubs, fortune tellers, gambling halls, gladiatorial arenas, healers, a juice shack, medical doctors, mercenaries, mercenary agents, operator den, orphanage, probably a lot of those. Pawn shops, prostitution, resident mage, saloon, tavern, bar, traveling shows, Vanguard estates, and weapons dealers. And each one of those has about a paragraph or so blurb to describe it for you. And none of that's really in like, in fact, nothing in this book really is in Palladium mechanics. Everything that you see in here is really just by percentages. Like there's so much percentage of this place is this, so much percent of this place is that. But that's as far into the mechanics as they really get. They do a little more in the creating town section, but it's actually really neat, and we'll look at that in a minute. You got a section on the burbs, the phantom cities. Coalition is the best way. Lawlessness in the burbs. Coalition states zero tolerance rules. Coalition intervention. The coalition 6 big problems with the burbs. Bureaucratic red tape, refugees and rejects, crime, the black market, dissemination of dangerous ideas, DBs, and demons. And then we have burb adventures. And each one of the burb adventures that is listed out in here is, they're numbered, and each one has about a paragraph or so below it giving ideas for, you know, kind of a elevator pitch for the adventure to get you going with it. You got, the first one is the Ornery CS Patrol. Then the second one, the Standard CS Patrol. And the third one is the CS Raid. Fourth one, Tolkien Suicide Squads in the Burbs. Fifth one is Coalition Troops on the Tear looking for Tolkien terrorists. And it goes on and on. Let's see, how many of those are there? 32 burb adventures just in that one section. Then we reach a section called Apocalyptic Earth, because you really needed, I think, to have this, because there's a lot of wilderness out there. They go over that a lot in Rifts, how much wilderness is out there. And Apocalyptic Earth takes a look at that. Pre-Rifts mythos, the post-apocalyptic age, barbarians, setting down roots, the Dark Age, ancient ruins from a golden age, real finds are out west, and that is the first 109 pages of this 192 page book. Then we get into what is, now all of that is really useful. It's useful no matter which version of Rifts you play, but so are these next sections. And I gotta tell you, these next sections are my absolute favorite. It's one of the reasons this is one of my favorite books, and I can't sit down and write my own adventures for Rifts, Savage Worlds, or Palladium without using this. And this is their creation chapters. And it's because I love the way they do it. There is a mechanic added in here, but it's as simple as a point spend. It's still not tied to the Palladium system, so if you wanted to use this for Rifts, I understand they have some of this in the Savage Rifts books, but this is far more detailed, and it's really good stuff. So the first section we come to is creating towns and cities. You look at, the first thing you do is you look at orientation, disposition, easygoing, passive, openly friendly, whatever kind. The important thing is you look at the type and size of the community. Now you can either roll this randomly or you can choose it. And each type and size is usually listed, they're numbered. There's 7 types and sizes for cities and towns. And each one has a little paragraph blurb behind it that tells you what it's like. But you have, number 1 starts with a family commune or a homestead. Number 2 is a small shanty town. Number 3 is wilderness gang, barbarian settlement. Number 4 is advanced village or small town. Number 5, typical wilderness town. Number 6, militaristic encampment. And number 7, a major city or town. So not only do these give you a description for what the town is like, but they also give you, at the very end of each one, building points. Building point, like this this is an advanced village or small town that gets 185 building points, but sufficient points must be spent on adequate water and food features. Okay, so what happens is, and I love when games give you this option, So we know the size of our town. Well, let's say we picked one. We want to do a, let's say we're going to do that one. We're going to do an advanced village. And we have 185 points. You now have different sections, aspects of the town that you want to look at. Like weapons, armor, medicine, real estate, so on and so forth. And each one is broken down. Like weapons and armor, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 choices to choose from, and each one has a blurb under it that tells you what that choice embodies. And then like choice 1 is weapons and armor, none. This costs you no points. You basically have pitchforks and shovels, which means you're not very defendable at all. Number 2 is limited. You have blacksmith or other skilled individuals. That one costs 5 points. It tells you what kind of weapons they can potentially make depending on the level you buy. You have the level of good, which is 10 points. Well armed is 20 points. Advanced is 30 points. And superior is 45 points. So you spend those points to gain whatever it tells you in that little blurb you get. Then we move on to medicine. Each one of these is broken down the same way. You've got like a 1 through 6, 1 through 8 listing of variations that generally go from none to the most advanced or the largest whatever. And you spend your points for your village you're building to have that. And you get it for medicine, real estate, vehicles and fuel, administration and social structure, alignment, magic, racial tolerance, trade, threats, skill levels and professions, the community overall. You can only buy one on these. Shelter, security and fighting force, power and energy sources, special features. And special features covers a wide variety of things like large aircraft hangars, electronics labs, science labs, country maps, harbors, robotics workshop, bunch of different stuff. Then our next section we come to is organizations. Now organizations works the exact same way that cities does. You pick the size of the organization or syndicate that you want to build. You get a certain number of points, and then you spend points on sponsorship, dress attire, equipment, vehicles, monthly salary, reputation, criminal activity, general alignment, monthly budget, disadvantages for building points, so you can actually earn points back. And then our next one is mercenary companies. Again, done the same way. You pick the size, which gives you the points. I find this to just be really fun. It's a fun thing, like I want to build one, this is kind of how I envision it. Alright, so I pick that one that gives me this many points, and then sitting and working out. If you don't like doing any kind of bookkeeping, you can obviously skip all of this and just write a description out for a town. But a lot of this is just given to you, and it's really nice to be able to look at the book and go, okay, well this is cool, I can pick this, pick this, pick this, and now I have what feels like a fully fleshed out town or organization to use. Like the mercenaries here. Let's see, what else do we have after mercenaries? We have traveling shows. Those are always fun, and they're done the same way. Size and orientation, and then you have points to build on to the traveling show. Excuse me. After that, we have Trail of Adventure. 101 adventure leads. And it's literally mostly North America stuff, but it is a ton of, like before, you have a name for one and then about a paragraph blurb to give you an idea for what the adventure will be like. So we go through all of that. There are 101 of those. Just more great line art here. But wait, there's more. A few quick adventure ideas for places outside of North America. So we have places in South America, Peru, South America on the mainland, France, New German Republic, mutants in orbit, or Europe, Russia, Japan. There are 10 different adventure ideas here for those. And then we have a section called Rolling for Rifts. Now, you do have a section in the Savage World stuff for creating rifts, and it's really nice. I have used it. This is a little meatier, so if you want a little more of that, then this is a really good setup here too. Or if you're not playing Savage Rifts, if you're playing regular rifts, then you just need this. But same kind of idea. It gives you a ton of information on rifts, how to randomly roll up different types of rifts, swelling rifts, pulsating rifts, stable cycling rifts, violent rifts, morphing rifts, diminishing rifts, weak rifts, ley line trap rifts, blind rifts, cascading rifts. Just a lot of information on different types of rifts. You have a random rifts table in here, and then you have a whole setup of tables for making your own rifts and giving them rules and destinations. And then the end of the book ends with their normal, ads for their other stuff, which is fine. There is a lot to go over here. There's a lot to read. I keep this book pretty close to me. Constantly grab it and read, a section out of it here and there. It's just good stuff. Like I said, you can generate towns, you can generate rifts and so on with the Savage Worlds books. But this really adds to it if you wanted to. If you're playing Palladium, then obviously all you need is this book, The Adventure Guide. It's just a very, very good book. The essays in the front of the book on running games, there's been a few things in there I've read and went, oh, well, I never really thought of that, but I'm glad they brought that up in this essay because it really made me think about something I had done in a couple of games. So, I mean, they're just good to read. They're as good as any fluff from any of the books, and Palladium books fluff is good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Say anything else you want about them, their fluff is really good. And then, again, my favorite part of the book is probably the building the towns and building the organizations sections. I think those are great. But that is a look at the Rifts Adventure Guide, and like I said, my main reason for this was because I tell people all the time you can use Palladium books for Savage Rifts. This book is a prime example of that, not necessarily just for the Rift stuff, but also the editorials in here that are really good, so check it out. Highly recommend getting a copy of it, no matter which version of it you play. And I'm going to kind of do that with some of these other books. I'm going to kind of go through some of the other books and take a look at them and look at what extra stuff they may offer to your Savage Rifts game, or why you might want to pick them up for your Palladium Rifts game or Palladium Fantasy. I'm probably going to do some Palladium Fantasy stuff too. So that is about it for today. I am going to go, but before I do, I'd like to give a shout out to my buddy Questwise. Go over, if you like Palladium stuff, go over and check his channel out. He has a lot of videos on Palladium lore and Palladium books. It's Questwise on YouTube. His channel is fantastic. I really enjoy his videos. We are very much kindred spirits when it comes to our love for Rifts or Palladium in general. But that is it for me this week until, I'd say next week, but I mean, really, I'm just putting videos up whenever I feel like it now. So, until next time, good gaming and good luck.